Hey guys, so today's video is actually going to be inspired by a post I saw on AlopeciaWorld.com. Now, if you don't know what that is, it's actually kind of like almost like a social media site created for people with alopecia or maybe parents of young people with alopecia to discuss with each other their experiences and possible solutions and all that good stuff. I personally don't use it very often. I do have an account on there, but I just don't happen to go on there a lot. But I do get emails from them about a post that was just recently made or a popular post on there. And one that I opened an email about was a mother asking about her daughter who would be soon going off to college and dorming. And her daughter was apparently very, very concerned about this, and the school would not make exceptions for her daughter to live alone because only apparently like people with disabilities were allowed to live in single dorms, and I guess the school didn't consider alopecia as under this category, and she complained that they were giving her a hard time. So this video is kind of going to be like my response to that question that this mother posed on there, and I don't know whether she'll see it or not, but I'm kind of hoping that someone else who's going through the same struggle right now is going to see this video and maybe get something out of it. Maybe if you're going off to college yourself this coming fall, maybe you'll get a little bit of peace from seeing this video, because I know when I went off to college, I guess 3 years ago now, I'm going into my senior year this year, but when I had to dorm for the first time in 2013, I was very, very nervous about it because the people that I was going to be rooming with, I did not know who they were, I had never met them, and I knew that I would have one of two options, either to tell them that I had alopecia or to sleep with my wig on, which I wasn't about to do for an entire year, and you shouldn't do that either. I do not recommend it. It's just not comfortable and it's bad for your wigs for sure. So the first piece of advice I have to give if you're going to be in the situation is one that's definitely easier said than done, but if you can do it, because I honestly did not follow this piece of advice myself. I was not strong enough to yet at the time. I think the best solution is to just open up about it. Tell everyone, like that's the way I am now, but definitely when I went off to college in my freshman year, I was not this way. But if you can do it, the sooner the better. I would say just open up about it. Start telling people if you can. People aren't going to judge you the way that you expect them to. It's so much more scary in your head, but then when you actually do it, you'll see that people are going to react a lot more kindly than you expect them to. Especially, I do think that bullying kind of festers a little bit more in a high school, middle school, public school environment, but once you go off to college, this kind of thing happens less. At least in my school, I find people much more friendly and open about stuff like that. Because now that I tell people, everyone is so supportive of me and it's really, really awesome. I don't really feel judged by people, which is great. But again, like I said, when I went off to college my freshman year, I wasn't able to follow my own advice on this matter, so I understand if you're not able to yourself. So now I'm going to tell you what I did as far as dorming my own freshman year. So when I went off to college, I had this big plan in my head to like tell everyone, change wigs all the time the first year that I was there and not care at all. But when I actually ended up going to college, it did not work out because I kind of fell into this trap, this realization that now that I was in a new school and nobody knew me, nobody knew I was wearing wigs because my wigs were so realistic looking. Everyone just assumed that the Tatum that I wore at the time was my actual hair. Since it was the only wig I ever wore, I didn't change wigs, so it didn't draw on questions about like, why is your hair always changing? Because people just assumed that what they saw was my real hair because they had no reason to think otherwise. So once I realized that nobody knew, I kind of fell into this mindset of like, okay, so why tell anyone? Like, why tell them they don't know? Whereas in my high school, I kind of went to a small high school, I almost just assumed that most people knew just because I went to all levels of school with them through elementary school back when I wore hats. So obviously, they probably all just assumed that I still had alopecia and wore wigs, whether or not the wigs looked realistic or not. So when I was in high school, I didn't really have that option, and when I went to college, I feel like I was so like seduced by that option. It was just kind of like, hey, like this is great, this is easy, I can feel normal. And that's the other problem, is that having alopecia doesn't make you not normal, and that's a main huge thing you have to accept. But at the time I did feel that way, and that's how I ended up falling into that trap again. So something that you can do if you don't want to tell people that you are wearing wigs and have alopecia and you still have to room with strangers. What I actually did is, when I went to school, the only people I told were my very close friends that I made and my roommates. So on the very first day of school, shortly after meeting them, we were all walking to the dining hall together just to kind of like get to know each other, and I just kind of like held my breath and just like told them, even though it was very scary for me. I just kind of like did it just to get it over with because I knew that living with them, they would have to find out eventually. And again, they were very nice girls, so it didn't have to be super scary, and I knew they weren't really gonna judge me, so I just kind of jumped in and told them right off the bat. And I think that just made my experience much more easy, because if I had spent the first couple weeks trying to hide it, it just would not have been fun. And honestly, again, I feel like they would find out eventually, so I might as well just tell them myself right off the bat. Here's something else that's a really good piece of advice, is that the way you tell people about you having alopecia is very strongly going to affect how they react to it. If you tell them like it's this big secret and it's this horrible thing, then that's how they're going to see it. But if you go up to them and you tell them very calmly, like, oh, by the way, I have alopecia and I wear wigs, like no big deal, whatever, that's how they're going to react themselves. So just keep that in mind. Whenever you tell someone, don't make it up into this big dramatic thing, because it doesn't have to be. But again, even though I didn't have the courage to tell them, I still wasn't comfortable being around many people without a wig. So here's what I did to solve that problem. First of all, I had a triple in my freshman year dorm, so like it was one loft bed with a desk under it, and the other side had a bunk bed. And I immediately was the first one there. I chose the top bunk because I knew that being elevated, it would kind of like give me that extra layer of protection and kind of like shield me from being seen if I did decide to take my wig off at night, which I had to. So every night when I went to bed, luckily my roommates also always went to sleep before me because they went to sleep at like 9 p.m. and I would stay up till like 3 a.m. because I'm crazy. So they would go to sleep before me, so by the time I went to bed, the room was already dark. I would just sneak up into my bunk bed, still wearing my wig, and then right before going to sleep, I would take it off and rest it at the foot of my bed. Now again, it's always best to store your wig on a wig head at night, but if you do, lay it gently on its side and try not to like kick it around a lot in your sleep. It's not going to immediately ruin your wig, and it's a good way to kind of like discreetly just, at night I would take it off, and then before I got out of bed in the morning, I would slip it on and sneak out of my bunk bed, and they wouldn't see me. Like obviously I'm sure they could assume that I wasn't sleeping in it, but at least I didn't have to like face them without a wig, because that was what was so scary for me. And luckily my freshman year of college, my dorm actually was like a little suite. It was like the three of us, and we had our own bathroom, so we didn't have to have like the corridor style bathroom like a lot of dorms have. But my second year of college, I did have a regular room with the corridor style bathrooms, and now I'll get into my experience with that. So sophomore year of college, same thing. I still wasn't comfortable like going around telling people that I had alopecia. So luckily I was rooming with my best friend, so that was a little bit less of a problem. She obviously knew, and I was comfortable around her without a wig, so that was good as far as being in my actual room. But when I did go to the hall bathroom, what I would do to like shower and stuff is I would again wear my wig to the bathroom with me, and then once I was behind the curtain, I would take it off and rest it gently on top of my clothes so that it wasn't directly touching like the germy bathroom seats. But I also didn't have to like go to the bathroom without my wig or anything like that. And the first couple times I did this, since you don't have to like wash your wig with you in the shower, as you probably know if you wear wigs, I would like wet it in the shower. So if I got out, it would like look like I had taken a regular shower and no one would really question it. But over time, I just didn't even bother to do that anymore, because like if you're just walking in a towel or like in your like freshly changed clothes out of the shower, no one's gonna be like staring at you and scrutinizing you. If you don't have wet hair after getting out of the shower, it probably just won't even occur to them. They're not gonna be like analyzing just like if your hair's wet or not. So you could probably just get away with not even doing that. But if you are nervous, it's easy to just like wet, just very, very briefly, like wave it under the cold shower only. Don't put it in hot water, but just like wave it quickly under cold water. It'll look like you wet your hair as if you showered it normally. So again, these are my tips for if you're going off to college and you're going to be dorming, wearing wigs, and having alopecia. Again, it can be a little bit scary to tell people right away, but I do think it's worth it to tell your roommates immediately, because if you're going to be rooming with them, I'm sure they're going to want to be friends with you just as much as you want to be on good terms with them. So don't expect them to be like some malicious person. If you're really unlucky, maybe you'll have like some jerk of a roommate, but more likely they're going to be someone nice and compassionate, and they're not going to judge you for wearing wigs. And if by some horrible chance you do have a bad roommate, just like suck it up for a week or so until you can request to change roommates, because most schools, my school definitely does, most schools will give you the option to change roommates if you guys really don't get along. So you'll still have that option if you and your roommate don't get along as well. So if you're going away to college and you're going to be dorming, don't be nervous. I know I really was, but it ends up being not nearly as big of a deal as you expect it to be. And I know everyone's kind of at like different levels of confidence with their alopecia and hair loss, but I do think it's good to push yourself and push your boundaries, because that's the only way that you're going to grow in your confidence. It's not just going to happen on its own. What I had to do to grow my confidence is just kind of like to do scary things and then just settle and deal with it and like learn how to cope with it, if that makes sense. My brother always uses this analogy for when you're gonna do scary things of like jumping off the diving board. So like if you're on the high dive, you have to just jump. You have to just do it. Once you hit the water, you're gonna automatically start swimming and then you're gonna be fine. You're gonna realize that it wasn't even dangerous in the first place, jumping off the diving board. So same kind of thing. If you're gonna put yourself in a situation where you have to be confident with alopecia and wearing wigs, it's gonna be scary at first, like as you're jumping off the diving board, but once you hit the water, you're gonna see that you're totally safe, it's totally fine, people aren't gonna be hating on you and judging you, and more likely they're going to be very supportive, and that's how it was for me. I wouldn't be surprised if that's how it would be for all of you. If someone reacts badly, it's on them, never on you. Like, they're a jerk, just go talk to someone else who isn't a jerk, and you'll be fine. So I do also have a video called like Going Away to College with Alopecia that does talk about more so specifically my experience being in college having alopecia. If you're curious to see that, you can click the link over here. But I'm also planning on doing a whole bunch of videos that are kind of like advice for how to deal with living with alopecia and stuff like that. But a lot of these will also kind of be based on your requests. If you have any specific requests of things you're struggling with or things you have a specific question about, comment them below. Leave me comments on my Twitter, my Facebook page, my Instagram, wherever, whatever platform you follow me on. They're all linked below. If you have a specific request, I would be more than happy to make a video for you if enough people would be interested in that kind of topic. So things like being in college or being in high school with alopecia, even just like changing wigs, you know, anything, swimming, stuff like that. I really hope this helped you if you're going off to college yourself with alopecia, dorming. Like I said before, don't be nervous, don't be afraid, it'll be fine. If you have more questions, you can always send me a private message on my Facebook page and my Tumblr if you don't want to be public about alopecia, because I remember when I would keep it a secret, I wouldn't write anything publicly, even on like a YouTube channel where no one followed me about alopecia, because I would be so paranoid that someone would see the comment and be like, Abby has alopecia, I know her secret. So like I know how it is to not want to even comment because you're afraid of someone seeing it. So again, I always have my private messages open on Facebook and Tumblr are the two best platforms to reach me privately. And thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope this helped someone. I really hope so. Hit thumbs up, hit subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.